I'm Cierra Bettens. Welcome to APTN News InFocus. On this episode, APTN's true crime series Taken returns after a 7-year hiatus. In August 2025, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew announced the province's plan to search the Brady landfill for the remains of Tanya Nepinak. The 31-year-old mother was last seen in September 2011. Sean Lam was charged with second-degree murder in the death of her and 2 other women. But in her case, the charges were stayed. After the province's announcement in August, APTN's Dennis Ward spoke with Vernon Mann, the father of Tanya Nepinak's children.
Vernon, really appreciate you taking some time here for us. I guess just your initial thoughts on the Premier saying that there will be a search for your loved one.
My kids and I are actually really happy to hear that they're going to do the search, make it happen. We've been waiting for a long time.
What are you hoping the next steps are here?
That we bring her home. It's been a long road that we've been waiting for this to happen. So we just want to bring her home so we can have somewhere to lay her rest properly.
But nearly a decade earlier, Taken spotlighted Tanya's story, sparking calls for justice.
I can't give up on Tanya. She deserves proper burial. Everybody deserves proper burial.
Since 2016, Taken has investigated dozens of cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirited people across the country. Through interviews, reenactments, and expert insights, the true crime documentary series honors victims, exposes systemic injustices, and amplifies calls for justice. And after taking a break in 2019, Taken returned to APTN on January 7th for a new season in English with host Lisa Meaches and in Anishinaabe with Vera Huell. And for a sneak peek at Season 5, I'm joined by Dinae Robinson. She's the head of content at Eagle Vision and one of Taken's executive producers. Dinae, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm curious, after a 7-year hiatus, what sparked the return of Taken?
So Taken ended at season 4, and that was at the time of the beginnings of the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And there was hope within the Taken family that, the national inquiry would help create some sort of change to where we didn't have to do Taken. And after many years of being on hiatus, and of course, just recently with major events in Winnipeg and across Canada, like the landfill case, and amongst many others, and after careful consideration of reinvigorating Taken and coming back, we consulted with community members, family members, law enforcement, allies. Would Taken be a good idea to revisit? And we heard the responses, and the responses were that Taken is needed, unfortunately. So that's what sparked the reboot of the series.
Mm-hmm. So this season brings us as far west as Vancouver, far east as St. Mary's First Nation in New Brunswick, and all the way north to Yukon. And I'm wondering, what can you share about this season and some of the stories that it will tell?
So how we go about in finding the families is we do have our website that has been active, and social media pages, of course. So a lot of family members had reached out to us and were wanting to share their family member stories, or we found them through research. And at Eagle Vision, a lot of what we do is incorporated with ceremony and with prayer, and we knew that it would all come together how it was meant to. And we knew that's how we were going to find our families. As you mentioned, we go across Canada from Vancouver to Whitehorse to New Brunswick and everywhere in between. And the ultimate goal, of course, is to help solve the cases and bring resolution to the families and communities.
Mm-hmm. And on a kind of related note, the first season of Taken featured the case of Tanya Nepinak. And fast forward to August 2025, and Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew announced plans to search the Brady landfill for her remains. I'm wondering, what role do you think Taken played in bringing awareness to the case and sparking calls for justice?
I think Taken helps a lot in many cases. Taken highlights the work that is being done by community members, by law enforcement, by loved ones, and by allies in the community. Many of our family members have said that Taken has allowed them to share their loved one's stories and speak about their loved one in a way that they have never been able to in mainstream media. And I think it also really highlights the severity of the epidemic of violence towards Indigenous people.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I think a lot of sort of mainstream true crime series that we see on large platforms like Netflix and on podcast platforms have often been criticized for being exploitative or even re-traumatizing families. And I'm wondering, with Taken, how did the production team sort of center families and ensure that they felt supported through the process?
So I myself have a background in doing community work at working for non-for-profit organizations with Indigenous people here in Winnipeg. Some of the staff that were helping behind the scenes that helped speak to the families, that helped put us in contact and coordinate, also worked in non-for-profits. One of our coordinators actually worked on the national inquiry. So we used a lot of those protocols and procedures from, having trauma-informed practices enforced. As I mentioned, we also have an Indigenous elder on staff. We incorporate a lot of ceremony as well. Taken is a hard show to work on, so we wanted to ensure that, of course, that the family members felt supported in these ways, but also that our crew and our staff were also being taken care of in these ways as well. I think for a lot of people that were working on the show, it was an easy pivot to remind us that this is not just a show. This is not just a true crime show. This is community work in a lot of ways. By interacting with these families, going into communities, speaking to law enforcement, speaking to community workers. There was a lot of liaison in between, and we really did our due diligence to ensure that we were doing everything in the best way that we could, ensuring that everybody felt safe and respected. And we really commend the families for entrusting us with their stories.
And this season is also premiering in Anishinaabe with host Vera Huel. And I'm wondering, why was it important to include programming for Taken in an Indigenous language?
We love APTN's initiative of language versioning in their programming. We thought that also that it's a chance to reach a broader audience and just to really honor Anishinaabe language. So we had Vera Huel hosting the Anishinaabe, and we also had other people come on to help with the dubbing, such as my grandma, who is a fluent speaker, and we had incredible people like Dennis Chartrand and a few others come on board to help with that. So it was a very special but tough process.
Yeah, and I know we were talking earlier about, the difference between Taken and a lot of other true crime series. And I'm wondering, what makes Taken different?
I think what separates Taken from any other classic true crime show or mainstream true crime show is that I think of the word love. When we started back up, of course, we knew that there was need for this show. And a lot of care went into preparation. A lot of care went into the outreach that happened when reaching out to families. And of course, when we were with the families, we ensured that everything was done respectfully and thoughtfully. And I think that really comes out in our interviews. And I think that comes out in the overall show. You could see that even in the recreations, that a lot of love and thought went into the show. And that comes from all across the board, everyone who was involved, even the people, even the actors that were doing the recreations, all of the writers, all of the people that we interviewed, I think it comes across that a lot of people really care about helping solve these cases, and it's really special. And I think that will come across to the audience when they're watching.
How has Taken continued the conversation about the crisis of MMIWG to us and really, brought a lot of awareness to the issue to non-Indigenous audiences?
I think Taken, alongside the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls and Two-Spirit People, have really shed light on how colonization has impacted Indigenous people living in what is now called Canada. And I think it has really raised awareness in how there are such divides and inequalities, and how those policies and practices and government structures have really put in Indigenous people at a disadvantage and have unfortunately made Indigenous people become more vulnerable to violence. And I think what Taken and the inquiry did was it opened a lot more people up to hearing about these policies and these practices, and they both help spread awareness in why. I think a lot of people struggle with understanding why are Indigenous people targeted, or why are they more vulnerable to certain activities. Our goal is for Taken to continue that conversation and those insights and to spread awareness and continued awareness about this national crisis that is unfortunately ongoing.
How can people tune into Season 5 of Taken?
People can tune into Season 5 of Taken by APTN Plus or on APTN on the classic TV.
Thank you so much for this conversation and, sharing a bit of a look at Season 5.
Thank you.
You can catch the next episode of Taken on Wednesday on APTN in English and APTN languages in Anishinaabemowin. Taken is also available to watch anytime on our streaming platform, APTN Plus. This episode was produced by Mark Blackburn and edited by Jesse Andrushko. Charmaine Straker is executive producer of APTN News InFocus. We want to know if you're enjoying the show. Please leave a rating and review on your favorite player or email suggestions to infocus@aptn.ca. Also, give us a follow. It helps other people find the show. I'm Cierra Bettens. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week.
Homeless people aren't hard to find in Winnipeg. They're on the sidewalks, in bus shelters, and down alleyways. They're living in tents and squatting in empty buildings. They're even sleeping in abandoned cars. But who are they? And why are they here? Find out in Our Relatives, Life on the Streets, hosted by me, Kathleen Martins. Listen on your favorite podcast player.